Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining our Wednesday's webinar. We have got Bernadette Smith with us today from 14 Stories in the Gay Wedding Institute. She's going to help us think of ways that we can add the LGBT sector into our wedding business. And we're really glad that she took time out today to chat with us. It's going to be pretty informal, but there is a PowerPoint that we might share a little bit later on. So let's have Bernadette say hi and get started with our webinar.
Hi everyone, my name is Bernadette and I own a company called 14 Stories. 10 years ago I started this company specialized in same-sex weddings when the law first changed in Massachusetts. Now I plan same-sex weddings with couples wherever they're legal. We have a pretty big company. I do a lot of speaking and training for those in the wedding industry about same-sex weddings. So you may have seen or heard me before, and you may see or hear me in the future. And I would love to help you understand this very powerful emerging market. It's really exciting and fun, and I think it's going to bring new energy into your own wedding business. So I'm going to talk about 5 things you can do today to start preparing your business for same-sex weddings.
Bernadette, can I start by putting a poll out? On the
Sure.
side, there's like a little poll option. So I'm
Sure.
going to add it, and then we'll keep it up for a few minutes. I'll add the poll off to the side of your screen. We'll keep it up, and everybody can throw their answer in, and then it'll be public in, like, I don't know, a few minutes. We'll let it go.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. All right, so you can start, and people can answer the poll when they have a minute.
Okay, sure. So I wanted to start by reminding you that straight weddings are very based in gender roles. They're very much based on the one bride and one groom, and the groom doesn't see the bride before the ceremony, and the bride is presented to the groom by her father, and there's the veil, and there's just lots of roles that are related to gender. The first dance, so much of those things are related to gender roles. And when there's a same-sex wedding, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, most same-sex relationships aren't based in gender roles at all. So that does, in fact, change how our weddings are planned and change some of the things that we're choosing to do in our weddings. So the number one thing I'd like to tell you is just check your assumptions. You might have a form that says that you fill out when you're meeting a new couple, or a form that you fill out when you're answering the phone and you have a same-sex couple on the line, or the form on your website. And probably the questions on those forms are very much based on gender. What's the name of the bride? What's the name of the groom? Are you having a bridal party? Things like that. Do you have your dress yet? Things like that that are very much making assumptions. One of the things I really want to tell you is forget about the assumptions. Start with a blank sheet of paper, because you never know what you're going to get. You never know. Just because you have 2 women getting married does not mean you have 2 brides. Not all lesbians who are engaged identify as brides. Some of them might identify as bridegrooms. Some of them might not be comfortable with the term the brides. So you never know what you're going to get. And lesbians in particularly, gay men in particular are very non-traditional. So we did this survey last year of about 900 engaged and married same-sex couples. We wanted to know, how traditional are you in your wedding plans? And we asked a whole bunch of other questions as well, but one of the questions is, how traditional are you? We found that by and large, lesbian couples are definitely more likely to follow wedding traditions than male couples, but by and large, we're still very non-traditional. For example, things like flower girl and ring bearer. We're less than 20% of same-sex couples are having those type of people. Only 35% of gay men, about a third, are doing a first dance. Only about 20% of gay men and lesbians are dancing with their parents at the ceremony. And keep in mind that the parents, not a lot of them are going to be supportive. More couples who are engaged now have the support. About 2/3 of currently engaged couples have the support of their parents. But if there's a partner who doesn't have the support of their parents, then that probably means there's not going to be a first dance with a dance with parents, because that sort of shines a spotlight on the fact that one family is not as supportive.
Can I ask you a question, Bernadette?
Sure.
Do you find that they replace those customs with other activities, other customs, or other special things that might be a part of their evening or their wedding?
I think that's up to us to suggest that to them. As a professional, as a planner, that's something I always suggest to my couples. I say, listen, if we're not going to do a first dance, or we're not going to dance with your parents, or we're not going to toss a bouquet, We might not cut the cake. There even is a cake. Well, I don't want your wedding to be boring, so what can we do instead? What kind of other elements can we add in to replace those traditions to keep the weddings having some energy to them? So we go to gay culture and lesbian culture. What are some of the things that are important to them? Does the couple want to have a drag performance at their wedding, or some other kind of performance, or some other kind of entertainment? Do they have a friend who has a special musical talent? Something like that could bring in an additional element, even if it's just a really quick performance that adds some structure and flow to the evening. I definitely encourage it, but what that looks like is really dependent on what the couple's individual needs are.
Can I just ask you one other question?
Sure.
How about with the decor elements? I don't want to sideline your train of thought, but are there decor elements that might be different that they would bring in?
I'd say no. Like I tell people, there are no gay flowers.
There you go.
Gay linens. So decor is a matter of personal preference, and I think there's some stereotypes that gay men are particularly stylish, and a lot of them are, so they might have some pretty strong opinions about decor. But I can say I wouldn't be comfortable at all generalizing about trends in gay and lesbian wedding decor. But back to sort of traditions and lack thereof, we're not seeing a lot of things like even wedding showers or bridal showers. Certainly less than 10% of gay men are having showers. About a third of lesbians are. So we're seeing a lot of things that are being skipped or being changed altogether. We're also seeing that same-sex weddings are generally smaller than opposite-sex weddings, in the sense that their parents are probably not paying for the wedding. We're probably not seeing their parents inviting their neighbors, their coworkers, their friends. Mostly it's the couple's friends and family, not the parents. A lot of times same-sex couples are not having a wedding party. About a third of same-sex couples don't have a wedding party. About another third only have a best person. And then about another third have a larger wedding party. So we're seeing a lot of smaller wedding parties. We're certainly not calling it a bridal party. Could be very much mixed gender. In many cases, we're doing the photos, those formal portraits. A lot of times we're doing those before the ceremony because there's no expectation of necessarily waiting to see each other before the ceremony. A lot of times we're starting as guests arrive at the ceremony with some sort of pre-ceremony drinks, whether it's past champagne or a past signature cocktail that greets the guests upon arrival and lets them know that this is something special, it's something unique, it sets a tone of celebration. Another thing to keep in mind is just because it's a same-sex wedding does not mean we have to enter the space in the same way. If you think about the ceremony processional, it's very much focused on the bride and the role of the bride. And like I said before, her being escorted by her father and handed off to her groom. She gets her own song. She's the last one down the aisle. All of those types of ceremony traditions don't necessarily come in play. So when we're talking about two brides, why not have two aisles and have them process simultaneously, coming in from two different directions? So there's that sense of equality of we're doing this together. There's not one of us that gets the attention. There's not one of us that gets to go last and is therefore perceived as the bride. Same thing with gay men. A lot of gay men might do two aisles or come in from two different directions at the same time. But a lot of gay men in particular are actually going to be walking down one central aisle, holding hands, as opposed to having two aisles, or as opposed to actually walking in separately. So that's more what gay men are more likely to do.
I just want to interject here too that it really is a more equal way for men and women to celebrate, even if it isn't a gay wedding, but if it's just a wedding, for two people to celebrate their joining together. So some of the old traditions are kind of like sexist, right? I mean, let's face it, the girls like the one, and it's better to be like, we're together.
Sure, absolutely. Everyone can learn a thing or two from gay weddings.
Definitely.
I'd also like to encourage you to be an advocate for your clients. In our survey, we asked the question, did you experience any discrimination or homophobia or heterosexism when planning your wedding? We found that about a quarter of same-sex couples did. And it's really unfortunate when a couple is planning their wedding to be rejected of services by a bakery or by a florist or by a venue. Sometimes that happens when it's just a very obvious statement. We don't work with same-sex weddings. Sometimes it's a little more subtle, where all of a sudden the venue learns that it's a same-sex couple. All of a sudden they're booked. Sometimes the same-sex couple doesn't even get a response. So just keep in mind that same-sex couples have to come out when planning their wedding, because most people are assuming that it's a straight wedding unless a same-sex couple comes out right away. So really, keep in mind that it's really important for same-sex couples to feel safe. And you should learn the laws in your own community. Currently, right now in the United States, there are 19 states plus DC that have full marriage equality. The U.S. federal government recognizes same-sex marriage. However, in 29 states, a wedding professional or any service provider can deny services to someone because they're LGBT. So that means that a wedding photographer in the state of Pennsylvania or in the state of Virginia or Georgia or Texas can say to a same-sex couple, I'm not going to photograph your wedding because you're gay. And that couple has no recourse. They cannot file a lawsuit, or they can file a lawsuit, but it's not against the law for that photographer to say that to a couple. So just keep in mind that discrimination is very much legal in most places in the U.S. And as a professional, I would really encourage you to be an advocate for your client. We had one couple who filled out our survey tell us that they ordered wedding invitations from a website, and the owners responded that they would not refuse the order, but they would donate all proceeds from the order to an ex-gay organization. We had another couple tell us that after they went in for a hotel tour, the wedding concierge suddenly wouldn't return the calls. Then they said that they had a different date, or that they had booked another event on that date. They gave the money back, but the couple had to reprint their invitations. I was personally calling on behalf of one of my clients in New York, and the venue told me that, she said something about the bride and groom, and I said, it's two grooms. Is that something you're comfortable with? And she said, well, I have to be now, don't I? It's the law. And I said, well, you don't have to be, but it's certainly something that, I'd encourage you to be. And she said, well, I guess we'll be okay with that kind of thing. And it's just the type of attitude and energy that no one really wants to experience when they're planning their wedding. So have those conversations so your couples don't have to. Be prepared with a special list of vendors that you know are going to be LGBT friendly. Have those conversations with your favorite venues and photographers and caterers. Find out what their experience is. Find out whether all of the staff is comfortable. Just because the owner of the company or the sales rep is comfortable with same-sex weddings does not mean that the banquet captain is, or that the driver is, or that your own employees are. Make sure, or your own contractors are. Make sure you have those conversations so nothing gets ugly.
Can I just ask you, how do you, is there a way to sort of, I guess there's no list of open-minded vendors, but is there a way to maybe network with folks that you know are going to be supportive and are going to help you make this a really easy, stress-free day for your client? Are there any sort of leading questions you might ask other than, are you comfortable with
Sure.
rooms?
You know what I would say is start with the people that you already trust. Start with the vendors you already have great relationships with, and just have a conversation. Just say, I took this webinar on same-sex weddings. I'm very interested in learning this market and working with same-sex couples. Have you had any experience? Have you had any phone calls? How's it going for you? Just have an honest conversation and see what their energy is like, and use your own judgment. If there's any awkwardness or there's any sort of discomfort or any reluctance to work with the couples, then obviously that's not going to be a vendor you would want to refer your clients to. There are websites, places to advertise, like equallywed.com, where people are advertising in support of their of same-sex weddings, gayweddings.com, and so forth. So you can certainly look up vendors in your area, but you should still have the conversations with them. And don't just assume that because they've taken out an ad on some website, it actually means that they're going to be gay friendly. Just honestly, just have a conversation.
Yeah, I like
that on gayweddings.com. I'm interested in reaching this market. Have you gotten any leads from that? What's your experience been?
Good ideas.
Just honest conversations. Don't make it awkward. If you're not awkward, no one else is going to be awkward.
That's great advice.
For those of you who work for larger companies, I'd also encourage you to sort of look within your company and see what your company's policies are. If you work for a hotel or a place with accommodations, there's actually a standard to rate them, rank them based on their gay friendliness, and it's called tag approved. So I'd encourage you to get your hotel or accommodation listed as tagapproved.com. If you work for a really big company like Marriott or Hilton, find out how that company's ranking is on the Corporate Equality Index. Same-sex couples look to these third parties to rank their businesses and to sort of rate businesses based on their LGBT friendliness. So find out what your own company's policies are in terms of your anti-discrimination policy. Does that include sexual orientation and gender identity? Your human resources policies? Is your company ranked on the CEI? Is it tag approved, and so forth? So those are standards, third-party standards that you might want to look into getting your company approved by. Think about your own employees and coworkers, your contractors. Have those conversations with them about same-sex weddings. Next is update all your marketing language. Your marketing language right now might refer to bridal, bride, the bride, bride and groom, bridal party, dress, bridesmaids, all of those things that are very bridal focused and not so much focused on inclusivity. And that's fine, but it's going to certainly be a turnoff to same-sex couples. About 70% of same-sex couples are really looking for gender-neutral language and gender-neutral photos on websites, especially millennials. So younger same-sex couples in particular are really looking to find themselves represented on your website, even if it's by saying something about being supportive of marriage equality or by not referencing bride, bridal, bride and groom constantly. So instead of saying bride, maybe you say couple. Maybe instead of saying bride and groom, maybe you say brides and grooms. Maybe on your contract, instead of saying bride's information and groom's information, you just say name of the couple or wedding couple name. Instead of saying bridal suite, say wedding suite. Instead of saying bridal party, say wedding party. Little changes like that can make your business inclusive. Your straight couples aren't going to notice about those changes, but there are going to be little tweaks that you can make that appeal to same-sex couples. And certainly you can do that in a way that is subtle. You can decide how bold you want to be about it. You can have language that does say something like, we are proud to support same-sex weddings, or we're proud to work with all couples, including LGBT couples. Or you can simply just say, we work with all brides and grooms. Depending on your comfort level in mentioning marriage equality or in mentioning the LGBT market, that's up to you. But certainly clean it up. Clean up that language so there's nothing in there that is exclusive. And it might not feel exclusive to you, but it does feel exclusive to same-sex couples. So here's some questions I'm going to read aloud that you can go ahead and ask your business as you're going through your materials. Do your marketing materials, contact form, or contract have the phrase bride and groom? What about the phrase husband and wife? Do they reflect diversity and not just diversity in sexual orientation? Are the materials and images primarily bride and female-centric? To use language indicating that a wedding is a girl's dream come true or her fairy tale or similar? Do your materials assume that there will be attendance and refer to them as the bridal party or the groomsmen or the bride side and the groom side? Are all of your testimonials only of straight couples? So those are good questions just to ask yourself and ask your business as you're cleaning up your materials.
Yeah, and those are just such subtle changes, Bernadette, and you are absolutely right in that most people wouldn't notice if you said couple's name, couple's address.
Mm-hmm.
Even in pictures, I mean, there's so many beautiful photographs you may have from your weddings. It doesn't have to be just the bride. It can be like hands holding or just something much more subtle that's just not super gender specific. And those subtle changes can make it so much more inclusive.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about pictures actually as my fifth point. Yeah, pictures are something where you might have lots of pictures on your website of the groom dipping the bride or the groom and the bride together. But maybe you're choosing pictures instead of the bride by herself or the groom by himself. Is she marrying a woman or a man? We don't know. Or is he marrying a woman or a man? We don't know. There's an openness for interpretation. There's a sense of we kind of believe, we can see what we want to see in this situation. We can kind of infer our own, extrapolate how we want that to be. Same thing about detail shots. If you focus on detail shots or shots of hands or shots of a ring exchange, things like that where it's not necessarily obvious whether it's two brides or two grooms or one of each, those are the types of pictures that you can include now, even if you've never worked on a same-sex wedding before. Focusing on more of those types of pictures will make your business more inclusive rather than exclusive.
Those are great, and I can just think of, you know, every wedding that we do, there's so many photos to choose from, and just making those subtle changes can just really make you appear and be more inclusive. So those are great suggestions.
Yeah, and we sell stock photos on our website, www.gayweddinginstitute.com. So if you don't have any photos of same-sex couples and you want some, or photos of, let's say, tuxedo strawberries or something like that, chocolate-covered strawberries in the shape of a tuxedo, we have those pictures on our website, gayweddinginstitute.com, for sale. So those types of pictures will you know, help you and help same-sex couples see that you are an LGBT-friendly business. We also have sample language and stuff on our website as well that you can take a look at and see what's going to work well for your company. But certainly updating your photos is a really important thing. Updating your language in the photos is just important across the board.
Those are two. I think all of us could do that very quickly. And I'll even say the wedding course that we have that will be launched next week, since I started doing these webinar Wednesdays, we had a green wedding, an earth-friendly person speak, and then you. And it's really made me think about how we as wedding professionals need to approach the industry. And it's not just, there are no specialty groups. We're just all people that are getting married, and these are very modern, you know, thoughtful ways of approaching our business in the wedding industry. So we have to stop calling them specialty parts of the industry, because they're not special. They're just what they are. They're just different clients and different ways of approaching the wedding business.
Well, one thing I'd say, though, is it's because same-sex weddings are so new and they're still relatively rare. There are 2.3 million straight weddings a year and probably 10 to 20,000 same-sex weddings, so relatively a very small proportion of the industry. We really want to see ourselves represented. We are looking to see ourselves in your blogs, on any blog. We want to see inspiration pictures of people like us, because we are looking to be found. We're looking for you to put yourself out there and say, I welcome you. I want. Same-sex couples are looking for businesses that are advertising to them. They're looking for businesses that proudly show their support because of this discrimination issue, because couples like to be more a lot of same-sex couples like to be very non-traditional. So we are looking for businesses that are sort of being very bold about that approach and proudly sort of embracing that approach. And yes, love is love, and we are, you know, moving towards a more inclusive industry. But in the current time, there's still a lot of need for separation, mostly for safety.
I also noticed, Bernadette, you had the thought on one of your pieces, and it might have been in your book. I have a copy of her book. We actually use it in our weddings course, so I encourage everybody to go out and grab this, order it on Amazon. It's put out by Good Now Flow Publishing. The Business of Gay Weddings, a guide for wedding professionals. So this is a great book to have in your library. But I noticed you talked about lining up with charities that promote same-sex weddings or promote equality, and maybe getting involved with them somehow to show your support of the industry. Do you have anything maybe to chat about that? How you find those? How you locate those in your area?
Sure. There are some very large nonprofits like Freedom to Marry and HRC, which are national, and Marriage Equality USA that focus on LGBT rights or LGBT marriage. So certainly find out if they have any local events in your area. You can certainly donate, volunteer. There's a lot of work to be done. Even if it's not just marriage specific, there's a lot of work to be done for LGBT rights in general. the more you can align yourself as an individual in your business with other organizations in the LGBT sphere, the more successful you're going to be, the more well-known you're going to be, the more you are going to be seen as a supported business. So I'm sure in your own area, whatever city you're in, there's probably an LGBT community center or an LGBT coalition or a business group or something like that that you can look up no matter where you are. There's organizations all over the place.
Should we maybe, if you might have a few other things, but I'm going to also remind folks that if you want to type anything into the chat box, like a question for Bernadette, please do that. I have the chat box open, so if you have a quick question that you want to put in there, put it in, and Bernadette will see it. I can ask it, and we can get some specific questions answered if you have any. Any other items, Bernadette, that you want to share?
I prepared 5 items, which I talked through, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and also to remind you that I teach a course. It's a full course. It's either as a webinar, which is once a week for 3 weeks, and the next time I'm teaching that is in September, and that's a certification course. So when you graduate and complete the course, you get listed on gayweddinginstitute.com, you get a badge for your marketing materials, a certificate that you can print out, things like that that will really help you really understand this market. I know I talked about a little bit of things today, but if you can believe it, I have a lot more to talk about. And I also do it as a live course as well. So if you live in an area that you think would be, with a good wedding industry that you think would really benefit from having me come and teach this course live, it's a 6-hour day and lots of fun, good activities, and, you know, again, it's a certification program. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I don't see any in the chat box, and I had questions about finding the vendors because I think that's really important. And I think what you said about really is sort of like keying into the tone and really just kind of the vibe that you get from people. I think that's really great advice, and I think with memberships, like I'm a member of ISIS, there's other, WPIs at Wedding Planning or Wedding Planning Association, or there's other wedding-specific associations, but just I think just making it be known that this is something that you're interested in will alert other people that you want to promote it, you're a friendly vendor for it, and I think it's a great thing for your wedding business.
Absolutely, it's only going to help everyone grow.
Well, Bernadette, thank you so much. I want this to be a nice quick half hour so people can still have time to eat their lunch if they need to.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Anyone has follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me at gayweddinginstitute.com.
And same, if you have any questions, specialeventsinstitute.com. Give us a shout, and we'd be happy. Jill at specialeventsinstitute.com. Be happy to answer any questions as well. Bernadette, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.